You're watching The Experience, Comic Culture and Sales, streaming live daily to Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, and Twitter.
Hi, everybody. We've got a double punch of awesomeness for you guys today. I get to talk to someone I met long ago at San Diego Comic-Con, Stefan Frank from Dark Planet Studios. Really awesome fellow. I cannot wait for you to know him better. And then Frederick L. Jones from Saturday AM just has got the best cool universe of anime manga that you'll ever see. Stick around, share so your friends know to come and join the fun and get all your questions together, because this is a live interview. You guys get to be part of it. See you guys right after this. Everybody, and welcome back. It's time for Talkin Shop here on The Experience, where we would love it so much if you'd share out to your friends so they know to join. Give some hearts and some thumbs up for our awesome production team. That's how they know they're doing a great job. And subscribe, because then you won't have to worry about missing a single show. You get your full schedule and everything. It'll be really great. All right, everybody, let's welcome our first guest, Stefan Frank.
Hi.
All the way from, I really love the color of your room.
Oh,
so
thank you.
They're just like white rooms.
You know, it used to be very boring, and then we had this massive water damage down here, and so I was just like, okay, this is my chance to make this really exciting, especially with Zoom, you know, with like COVID and stuff, like where you're Zooming with so many people and you go, oh, that's nice. I like his room. I like her, you know, thing. So I was just like, man, I need this studio to pop a little bit more, you know?
Yeah, I definitely, when we spent way more time doing live broadcasts from the store, I feel like I had to up my game with crazy backgrounds. Like, I don't know if anyone knows, those are actual signs. I did not steal them. I bought them from a garage sale. I have no idea where they got them. But yeah, I was just like, ooh, what would make good background?
Yeah. Yeah, we need our little world with us, you know, to just frame the experience, you know?
Absolutely. All right, so I met you at San Diego Comic-Con, I don't know, maybe as much as a decade ago, feel.
Wow.
And you always have like a really beautiful booth, so primarily like black and red. And when I met you, you had one series, and that's all I really knew you from, because I bought the series when I met you. Bought the whole series and read it all kind of like on the way home in the plane. And was like, oh my gosh, why isn't this in every comic book store? So, but this is not really your first entry into cool nerddom. What is your background in our industry?
My background as a fan and a reader or whatever, you know, was like my parents had a store when I was a kid, like sold comics and books, toys, and, you know, cigarettes and bus fare. It was just in this very small blue collar town on the outskirts of Paris. So it was this kind of neighborhood stores where like all the essentials of life, you know, and that included comic books, you know. And so that was, to me, it was a magical place, and I grew up there. And so they had also like school supplies, so that means drawing supplies. So I had like notebooks to write in and paper to draw on, and my dad had a photo studio in the basement that he would take portraits of people in the neighborhood and process their film and whatnot. So like the whole thing was like film, animation, comics, writing. It was all one thing. And I didn't understand that the industry segmented people a lot more, you know. So that's where, you know, and so I, you know, went to school for animation, and you know, worked in animation ever since, you know. And that was around the time I started college, not to date myself, but what the hell, when Who Framed Roger Rabbit came out, you know. and that transformed animation from like a dying art form that had like 12 people doing it, to like the stuff of Blockbuster, that like, to where, like, if I told like a young person today, when I was your age, animation didn't exist, or was, I mean, it existed obviously, but was dead, and they would not like, what do you mean? What did you watch on, Adult Swim? There was no Adult Swim. It's just like, there was nothing. But then everything changed, and so got me a chance to. So I went to school in France, moved to England right after that. Worked on the Five Goes West and American Tail 2. That was my first feature to work on, and yes, and then moved to America actually, and I've been in LA 30 years working for pretty much all the studios. So I get the good fortune to work on stuff that I was really, really excited about, like Iron Giant, for instance, where I was a supervising animator on that. That was, really wonderful. And all the tons of other things until, like right. Currently I'm directing new What If episodes for Marvel. So that was also super, super fun. I worked on the first season. I supervised the animation of the first season, and now I'm working on what comes next. So that's awesome. And so this has been my journey in animation. And meanwhile, about 10-15 years ago, I was like, yes, but remember, comics. You also want to do comics. So I started doing comics. And the thing is, because I wanted, because animation is such a setting. There's a million people involved. It's like so it's wonderful in many ways, but what's nice with the way I wanted to do comics was the autonomy of it. So to be fully autonomous, I not only did I need to draw and write and do everything myself, but also needed to control the distribution of the books. And so that's why I started Dark Planet Comics. And through which we published the Silver series that you were mentioning, and which did really well. And conventions, of course, are that was a real kind of grassroots kind of like, there's fans everywhere. There's like cosplaying people. It's just amazing, and then once the series reaches a certain level of, okay, this is too big for us now to, then now we're working with Abrams Comic Arts on Silver, and they're just putting out those gorgeous hardcovers, which benefit from everything we've learned in publishing this material with the trades that we did. So all that sort of trial and error, and okay, now we know exactly the best way to do it, that goes into the work with Abrams. And then there's a new series called Palomino, which is the Kickstarter and stuff, which is a series that I started in the first volume we kickstarted in 2020. Because of everything was disrupted, and there was no convention, so the Kickstarter was really big, but then after that, it only a few stores that we have a special relationship with got it and stuff. We didn't really push because we didn't know really what the world was, or what so we've kind of held it back a little bit, and then through the last 3 years, where and I'm sorry, I'm talking super long, so there you go. But the last 3 years that all the conventions were like sort of frozen, and we really just got back into them, like with Seattle this year, which was fantastic. But this whole time, as I was super busy on the show at Marvel, and at the same time I was like nose to the grind, stone, on Palomino, and by the time I came out for air, I was like, oh, I've done 2 new volumes out of 4. So this is where we are now, where we're kickstarting volume 2 and 3 of the series.
All right, so let's go back to this.
Let's unpack all this madness.
I need to talk about, because I had no idea that you started from an entrepreneuring family, because it sounds like you guys just met whatever need the community had. Yeah. Was it something that was a family business before your parents, or is this something that they started themselves?
Yeah, they had, other adventures in life before that, and my parents were a little bit older, and compared to most parents, and they were at this point in their lives where they were like, okay, we've done everything that was kind of expected of us. Let's do the thing we really want to do. And and my mom was really about writing and books, and she became a really good writer. And my dad was about photo was his photography was his passion. The two of them had this brief moment where they work for a French version of what I would call Access Hollywood of the 60s. So we have this storage box that's filled with film canisters of them going, like on movie sets and meeting stars at home and all that stuff they were filming and stuff. So it was pretty crazy. But anyway, so they were like, well, where could we do the thing we love? I love books, I love photography. Well, we'll start this place that will be, a bookstore / photo studio. Yeah, that sounds like a great idea. But how are we going to keep the door open? Then it's got to become this hub for the neighborhood where, there was literally one line for cigarettes that went 3 times around the block and one line for everything else, So that's where I grew up.
In Paris.
Right.
That's amazing. So they ran it together. You guys were there every day, and
yeah, exactly. They did that for a while. Then my dad passed away, and my mom kept it alone for as long as she could, and then she sold it.
Yeah, what a great, rich family history. I bet you have so many awesome memories from being there.
It was my, and especially there was a lot of really magical aspects to it. One was that it's, Paris. It's not Paris, it's outside, but still is very kind of limestoney kind of, thing. So everything has basements, and the basements have basements, and the basements has a basement, And so they had this triple basement. So you were in the store, you'd go down, and then it was going weirdly into the Bat Cave or something, and you'd get storage thing with crazy stuff from the 60s that had been there for 15 years, and that was what is this? What those Christmas ornaments are insane, So we'd explore in there, almost spelunking, and then you'd go down one level, and it'd be my dad's studio, and then you go down, and with two more, storage room. And to me that was a cave of wonders,
Yes.
So that was magical.
Yeah, I've grown up.
Sorry, go ahead.
I've grown up in places that we can't have basements, or it would be very difficult to have them, because in Texas, where you would get down below the water table.
Yeah.
And so I've always been a little bit jealous of my childhood, because my first 5 years were in New Hampshire, and everyone definitely had a basement there. And I remember them definitely like you do. There were magical places where you just find things in corners that were cool toys or whatever. Even if they weren't toys, they were toys to us.
No, especially when you're a kid, where all the stuff that you find that existed before you were alive, you're this is from the old days, from the before times. It's crazy. It
seems so magical. I love that. So you said you went to university. Did you go in Paris?
I did. After high school, I wanted to go to this animation school called Gobelin. That's in Goblins, I guess you would say if you pronounce it, but in French, this is Gobelin, where it's one of the big animation schools in the world now. But back then, it was a very small school. But then again, animation, like I said, was barely existed. So we are lucky that existed at all. And it was very hard to get in because, again, the animation was the industry was small, so they did not need a lot of people. So you had to take this drawing contest to get in, and so right after high school. And the thing that I didn't mention is that through like another thing was kind of magical around the store was that when I would go with my mom, I was like maybe 10, I would go to her distributor, so like her diamond warehouse, if you will, right? And then we would open, I would like, when she would go do her business, I would like open crates and find Will Eisner, what is this, And so that's how I discovered the Spirit in those gorgeous French editions that are just like the best editions I've ever seen. And so so when I was 13, I saw the movie Heavy Metal, again, animation comics. I was like, okay, that's it. That's the. And so I did this short film of the Spirit, that, took me like 3 or 4 years to do when I was a teenager. So, and so after high school, I knock on the animation school kind of door. I show them my short film, and they go like, "It's garbage. You got to learn how to draw." So I think
Okay.
try the test, right? So I have to go to a regular college where where they would teach like to be an art teacher, which was interesting, but it's not what I wanted to do. But I do it for 1 year, and then at the end of that year, I go try the test to get into the school. I just don't make it at all, and so I go back to my regular college, and then the year after I try again, and I do even worse than I did before.
Do they tell you it's worse?
Well, I could tell. I was like, this is worse. This is not going in the right direction right now. So the third year I was like training like all year and stuff, and I'm like, okay, and 3 weeks before I kind of lose my confidence, and I'm like, oh, I can't take another rejection and whatever. And this friend calls me, and mind you, is a guy who I had met in line the first year that I failed the test. So he was graduating, I was not even in at all. And he calls me and say, "Hey, you ready for the test?" I'm like, and I'm like, "Yeah, I don't think." And he goes, "Dude, I've seen the prompt. It's, what does he tell me? It's Popeye. It's gotta be Popeye. Learn Popeye." I was like, oh, Popeye. All right. So I start like Popeye. So I show up 3 weeks later. I open the thing, and it was the Pink Panther. But the thing is, my chops were up at that point. So I got it, and so that's me going to school. And
Okay, so
it was
this is
great.
this is a good thing for you to relay, because I know there's a lot of people that are disheartened. They like go and show their portfolio over and over and over again, and try and get rejection.
Mhm.
The like most creative industries, you just have to have a thick skin. It's like acting or working in movies in any kind of way, or theater or art. It feels like this is the path. Music, you just have to be okay with getting told, nope, go back and work on it, and go back and work on it, right?
That absolutely. When I finished school, excuse me, and we were doing internships, and one of my internships was on Babar, the elephant. Okay, not not extremely hard to draw, right? And so at the end of the internship, the guy who was running the animation there, just like, let's say, everybody's good job, everybody can all go. Did you mind stick around? So I'm like, me, and so he takes me aside and he goes like, okay, don't take this the wrong way. I'm just trying to do you a solid here. You really need to find something else to do because you have absolutely no talent whatsoever. And that was, so I cried for about 22 minutes, and then you gotta go back. And it was 40 years, no, not 40 years ago. It was 30 years ago, and I've been working the entire time since then. So if you really have something to say with this, if this is you, this is your work, you'll find a place where it makes sense. Just have to. And the thing that I found is most of the people that I like, the strongest artists that I were my idols when I was young, and then became my mentor later on. Turns out they all have the exact same story.
Oh, they tell you the same thing. None of them just were like, I showed up and they gave me money.
They all showed up, and everybody told them, dude, why are you even here? You have this is not for you. But they were, no, actually this is not for me, it is me, and I am doing it, and but it's not just stubbornness, right? You have to accept the criticism, you have to take it all in, you have to understand what they're trying to tell you, because I'm pretty sure that the guy didn't say that to me out of being mean, right? I mean, maybe he didn't have the best bedside manners, but the point is he had a point, so you have to be able to survive that stuff and go like, screw you, I'm going to do it anyway, but at the same time, but also I'm going to hear everything you have to say because clearly you know something, so you have to reconcile those two things.
Oh yeah. All right, let's talk about Palomino, because I read the whole first, which I guess would be called a graphic novel length of the series. And I'm super addicted already. It has all of the things that I love in comics, where it has very rich character development. You already kind of care about them, even at the very beginning when you just meet these two girls walking in a field and they're doing something they probably shouldn't do, but you're like, oh, that's kids doing kid things. And you see the complexity of what's happening, like with the father figure and the mysterious blonde lady who obviously is connected to nefarious people. And it is kind of like, I don't know how to describe it other than kind of like crime noir Western so far, with a little bit of mafia thrown in and some music, real love of music you can see in there. Yeah. What was your inspiration for this?
It comes from a lot of different places, right? So we're in 1981, and so the Palomino. So it's yes, it is an LA crime mystery, right? And for its backdrop has the Palomino Club, which was a real place, a real legendary music place that existed, where it was just a crazy joint where like it was the play, one of the, in LA in those days, right? You had the Whiskey, the Roxy, and the Troubadour, and you had the Palomino, and everybody played there, right? And on any given night, you could have, John Belushi and Jerry Lee Lewis getting drunk at the bar together, while, Jerry Brown was sitting in the back with Linda Ronstadt, and the Beatle would go on stage, out of the blue without knowing. It was that kind of a place, right? But it was also this kind of honky-tonk, kind of crazy, LA. And you see it in some movies, right? Like you see it in Every Which Way But Loose, you see it. And so because I love the music of that era and that place and that environment, I just came across the Palomino and became kind of obsessed with it, So what a better place for a noir story. I mean, like the owner's dad had a Model T that was parked in front of the club that was riddled with bullets from when he was running, by the cops, when he was chased during the Prohibition era. So it's all there. It's in the middle of the valley in the 80s, which is not only a place, to me, the 80s is, it's the place where the 50s came to die, but it's also where the world of today started to take shape, for better or worse, and so it's a very strange and interesting world. And the image of the cowboy was at the time how America sold itself to itself and to the world. So that's really, and so we have this guy who's a former cop, Eddie Lang. He's a pedal steel guitar player, working musician at night at the Palomino, and private detective, just sticking to small time cases, during the day. And so, and he's got his daughter who's 16, and she's an old soul, and she's even more hard-boiled than he is, and together they're kind of really hilarious. So it is a crime story in LA, but in a setting that you may have seen in some movies before, but never connected to that great tradition of the LA noir mystery. But the music is also very important, and because we're in this environment, and on top of that, there's the slice of life, like the raising kids in LA in the 80s and stuff like that. And the working musician is a really interesting image because in 1981 you could work in a club like that, be a musician 6 nights a week, and make a good living class, make a living and have a house in LA, raise a family in a good sort of middle class, situation. That, of course, does not exist anymore, right? And so the working musician was, in a way, the canary in the coal mine of the American middle class in the last 30 years. So that's very interesting. So I have 2 daughters. I've raised them in LA, out here in the Valley. So it's like the slice of life of this, and I should say also, I'm a musician. I played in clubs like that since I was a teenager until a few years ago. A lot of the musicians that worked at the PAL was closed when I got here in 1995, but I've played with them and worked with them in other situations after that. So it's a world that I know really well, and so like all the lived-in texture of all that stuff mixed with the crime mystery, which I have absolutely no knowledge of actual crime mysteries in real life, but that's the part that's imagination.
You would never know. I am steeped in true crime. I have a criminal justice degree.
Oh wow!
It's written to appeal to someone like me that's like obsessed with all of those things. So.
I'm so happy that you just made my day.
All right, we have run out of time, but we're going to pop up the link to the Kickstarter. I'm assuming the Kickstarter does have some tiers that they can get that first volume.
Yeah, absolutely. You can get all the volumes, and you 1, 2, 3, and you can also get those beautiful Abrams hardcover of Silver. Whether you already have the trades or you're just discovering the series, those are really awesome. So
yeah, so we'll do the short pitch for Silver vampires.
Yeah, Silver, exactly. Yeah, which is pulp. We're in the noir pulp era of the 1930s. It's a big adventure, and you have this group of con men who team up with this woman who's a vampire hunter. Her name is Rosalind Van Helsing, and they're together. They're trying to steal this precious treasure, this silver treasure, from a castle full of vampires. What could go wrong with that plan?
Only needs 3 volumes and another extra bit of book to tell that tale, and you definitely should own all 4 of those books. All right, so we have that link. Is there any other places that you are very interactive in social media that people might follow you?
On social media, people can find me on Twitter. They can find me on Insta. They can find me on Facebook, me or Dark Planet Comics. And I think like the hub for any kind of latest information is darkplanetcomics.com.
Okay, perfect. Well, I know that I'm definitely going to want to have you back on again because there are so many more questions that I want to ask you.
I'd love to, yeah.
Because I think everyone in the comments, I wanted to be able to ask questions for them. They were like freaking out that you were like part of every childhood thing that they had memories of. So I know they'll want to talk about that.
That's amazing.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me. It's great to see you. I can remember, 10 years ago we met in San Diego. That's amazing.
Yeah, I'll see you this year again. If you have a booth down there, I'm sure you will.
Yeah, I will be there. I'll be there.
Perfect. Everybody stick around. We got another awesome interview with Frederick, and we'll be right back.
Why was Princess Zelda sad after watching a bunch of YouTube videos? She couldn't find the link in the description. We'll stop if you subscribe to our YouTube channel. It's super easy. Click subscribe and click the bell when you do. And thanks for supporting the EXP.
To be continued. 3 little words that hold the secret to the next great story. 3 words that will thrill you, confound you, give life to new possibilities. Every variation of To Be Continued is a promise of adventure, a promise of excitement, a promise of unseen wonders and unexplored worlds. A promise that every issue you read makes you a part of a never-ending journey, and behind every page there will be an unopened door waiting for you. This story to be continued at your local comic book shop today. Visit comicshoplocator.com today. Comic Collectibles is a pretty straightforward show. You got Rex here, he sells the comics, and you got Rockin' Robbie, he knows about the comics. And finally, John, well, no one really knows what John does. I mean, don't get me wrong, he's a great guy, but he just keeps showing up. Come to think of it, I don't even really know how he gets in here. Anyway, awesome comics, rare books, rarer signatures, slabbed books, and amazing cover sketches by Ken Hazer and others. Simple formula, you want the comics, you buy the comics. To sum up, Rex sells the comics, Robbie knows the comics, and John, who might possibly be a ghost. I mean, seriously, has anyone ever seen him show up or leave? Comic Collectibles with Rex and John, Mondays from 6 to 8 Eastern on The Experience. Comic Culture and Sales.
You know how when you go to Comic-Con, after Comic-Con, you go to the hotel bar, and there's a whole bunch of people playing music and dancing, and you've got Pikachu and Lara Croft Tomb Raider doing the cha-cha slide just down from Deadpool and Batman and Wonder Woman? That's every Saturday night over on the Experience Twitch channel. Join Taji Beats for the EXP Dance Party, exclusively on Twitch, twitch.tv/the_EXP.
Everybody, and welcome back. I'm Miss Jen. You're here watching us on The Experience. This is our awesome show called Talkin Shop, where we make sure that you know everything you need to know about books that are coming out very soon or are already available, and we just think you might have missed it. That's one of these things. I met this person at Comics Pro this year and could not believe we had not met before. Felt like we were kindred spirits. And I immediately came back and ordered the full line of books. So I want you guys to know all about this line, just in case you need a new favorite thing. This is Frederick L. Jones from Saturday AM. No, I can't hear you.
My mic is muted, so my joke didn't land.
No!
Legally not Frederick Jones from Saturday AM. He is on his way.
Perfect.
He's just running a little bit behind. So I thought I would tell the story of how the Experience got connected with Saturday AM. And now that he's here, he can hear the story too. So we were planning our initial launch of the Experience, but just before that, we did Cadets Con.
That's right.
And I had 2 friends go, dude, you got to get the guys from Saturday AM on Cadets Con. My buddy Imani and then Will Holland. And so I look up Saturday AM and go, and so we immediately book them. And then Jay Oden comes on our drink and draw for that event. And I think I bought every piece he drew that night, and it's hanging here in my office. So I've been obsessed with Saturday AM since the height of the pandemic. And it's just been so like insane for me to watch them grow and expand and to be in a big chain bookstore this past Saturday night selling people Apple Black #1, even though I don't work there, just because we happen to be in the same aisle. So,
by the way, Kyle, your impression of Will Holland is on point. That's just like him. It's so wonderful to see you again.
Yeah, absolutely. The same here.
Did you escape Comics Pro with no cooties?
Yeah, I've actually done a few things since then. I was just at an event this weekend with the artist Sanford Green, Bitterroot.
Oh,
and he's a frat brother of mine, and he's obviously a legend. And he's teaching a class on making comic book stories or graphic novels, and so he asked me to help talk to the kids and kind of get things moving to get the book produced, actual anthology they're working on. And I was there this whole weekend, and I was like, man, I'm not wearing my mask, and they're not wearing their mask, and I hope I'll be okay, because I've got other stuff coming up, free comic book days, as a matter of fact. So I'm like, oh man, and I'm triple vaccinated and stuff, so I just kind of I try to keep a little bit of distance, and certainly wear my mask when I feel like it's very, very overwhelming. But now I've been so far fortunate. I haven't gotten it so far.
So there might be a lot of people on that this might be their first exposure to you and these awesome books. What is your history in regard to the manga art form?
Yeah, well, I'm 49 years old, so I grew up when manga and anime were starting to get traction in very very hobbyist ways in the West. Obviously in the 60s they were Speed Racer and Astro Boy, and my father had remembered those. But when I discovered it, I talk a lot about how those of us who were into comic books, we were always kind of weird anyway. So I knew the minute I saw the cartoons, right, for Star Blazers, which was Battleship Yamato, or Battle of the Planets, which was Gotcha Man. You knew, and again, I don't know if every kid knew, but certainly those of us who were predisposed to this type of material, the minute you saw it, you were like, oh, this is not Hanna-Barbera. There's something different here. It's very different. And so, I then remember going to the library and getting the wonderful book from Fred Schott called Understanding Manga. I think it's called Understanding Manga. And I just kind of fell into it. Hobby shops, would have the model kits, early Gundams and Star Blazers. So you could just you start to pick up little things here and there. So I'd always been fascinated by it. And then I went to Japan as an exchange student when I was 15 through Duke University. So I have been a lifelong fan of this material. I've just, for all the reasons I think the young people are into it today. The challenge, of course, and the flip side to it is that after I graduated at UNC Chapel Hill and I had my career in the video game industry, I was both surprised and a little disappointed. Surprised in the number of people, because manga and anime at that point had spread globally, and now the majority of countries had access to it, and not legally, then certainly illegally. So I was seeing young people who were doing all the same paces that we went through. I'm going to draw my manga character, it's going to be spiky hair and big eyes, and they were doing it so well, right? They were doing it so well. It was so unbelievable how good it looked, how authentic it looked. But the flip side about my fascination and excitement to see that was the fact that it seemed as if manga had regressed, and anime had regressed. I didn't see a lot of characters of color. And clearly there were more people of color reading and enjoying it. So that was kind of surprising to me. And I thought at that point, both the nexus point of me seeing that this thing had gotten super popular and a lot of people were doing it, to, oh man, all these people who were into it and helping it become bigger are not being represented on the pages or behind the scenes making the stories happen. And I thought that was time to try to create an alternative to that. So that's what Saturday M is really all about, is trying to serve as a global recognized brand for creating non-Japanese manga, frankly.
So did you start Saturday AM with this in mind, that was what you were going to go after, is try to diversify characters and the creators that were putting out the content?
that was from the very beginning. Yeah.
Was it very hard to connect with people? Because I know that I've looked at their books, they all represent so many different nations.
Yeah. I mean, so there's two funny stories that, well, just two like interesting tidbits to that. One is that when I did the business plan, like I said, the business plan was always set to do what we're doing now. To what we did when we started back in 2013. But one of the things I referenced in the business plan, in terms of like what was the exit or what was the opportunity for us, what do we think we could achieve in the next decade? The idea was always that, look, I can see the tea leaves. Remember, Disney bought Marvel not too long after the Iron Man movie came out, right before the Avengers movie came out, and they had already bought Star Wars. And so I was looking at thinking, okay, well, if that happens and Disney owns these, why, Netflix was starting to really catch on at that point. I'm like, well, then why wouldn't they just start their own streaming service? They've got ESPN, ABC, Disney, Marvel, Pixar. Like, why in the world would they give money to other companies when they could reap the rewards directly, right? You're paying them directly instead of going through a middleman. And so I talked about this in the business plan. I'm like, yeah, so I can see that happening. And if that happened, then Warner Brothers, who owns DC, would almost have to do the exact same thing. So I talked about the streaming reality that we're in today. And I then moved and said, and as a result of that, Paramounts and Universals, the rest of these guys, Apple, Amazon, pardon me, they would then have to respond. So what are they going to do? They have to buy up IP, or they have to look for IP to license. And so my goal was I want to be one of the 3 companies left standing. That's one of the 3 companies who are creating independent content that's left standing. The other funny tidbit to that was that I had no inclination, I had no strategy or even foresight that social media would be what it is. And so to answer your question, social media, when we introduced our concept, introduced the brand, it immediately resonated with people. And there were pockets of them, like before Webtoon was a thing in the West, or groups like Manga Magazine and things like that. And there were a lot of these people who were really discovering themselves and discovering that they love to draw manga. And they found other people who like to draw manga and people who like to read non-Japanese manga. So that really started to develop. But the flip side to that was that social media, we just happened to coincide with the growth of Instagram. And when we first started, DeviantArt was how a lot of artists found us.
Yeah.
But once Instagram and things started to pop off and a lot of our creators started to become successful and popular in that social media realm, then it obviously dovetailed quite nicely to our overall business plan. So we've been quite successful in finding creators. Now we have a more streamlined approach. We have this thing called Summer of Manga, which is happening right now, where people pitch us titles and they pitch us concept short stories. And if we like it, then we'll get them an editor and we'll work with them to develop something, really small and tight, something with a beginning, a middle, and an end. We run it in the summertime. Fans and professionals and everyone gets to read it and they get to vote on it. And the critiques sometimes can be extremely brutal, but they're critiques as opposed to just doing stuff and no one's seeing it. And then if that goes well, we then add them to, I'm trying to see if I have it up here, but we then add them to a book we have called Saturday AM Annual, which is a graphic novel anthology, and nearly all the creators in there are creators that we work with. So we hire them for their first professional print published work, and it's been quite nice.
Well, I think that's a wonderful project because it does a couple of things. One, it gives people opportunity, and it also gives them what a lot of them need to push them a little bit harder, which is the critique to know what's working and what's not. Do you get a lot of feedback from them that part is just as valuable as if they actually got picked up?
Absolutely. Yeah, Jen. I mean, I think, well, like I've said in the past, if you care about diversity and you don't care about it at the surface level, you care about it through the entire platform. And so from that standpoint, we have events like March Art Madness where we incentivize people to create art. They enter an event, they create art every single week. They have a deadline they have to hit, just like Summer of Manga. But at the end of the day, they win cash prizes, they win paid art contract, they win with outside vendors. Like some have drawn artwork for video games, and some have done stuff for other art supply companies. They win an iPad because again, if you can, these are global young people who are entering. So the point being is that if you can't give them a chance to improve and to practice and to do something you do to get better, then saying you want to have a creator from another country, where frankly, let's be real, a lot of the things I just mentioned might be difficult to come by. Either financially difficult to come by, or just the distribution might be difficult to come by. So we've been very excited about that. And then likewise with Summer Manga, getting the critique was so crucial because at the end of the day, what a lot of these kids want is they want legitimacy and they want validation. And when you have social media operating the way it does, those things are not necessarily hard to come by. They are, but they're also, as we see right now with politics, it's so easy for disinformation to push out. So you have a lot of kids who are like, I want to have a career in artwork. It's like, have you actually talked to an artist? Do you know how lonely this life? Do you know how unremarkably wealthy this industry is? Like, this is, you have to love this to want to do this. You have to be really put into this, and so to get that like actual feedback, I think is crucial for them to just know that there is a plan, that there is an opportunity, that there are people who love and support them as creators, but at the same time, it's going to be hard, and there are things that you may have to do in terms of sacrifice or practicing a lot more than you may think. It's easy for a kid to draw a picture of a popular superhero on social media and get 1,000 likes and think, oh man, I'm awesome. And it's like, draw something new now and see how many likes you get. It's like it's a different animal, right? So I agree. I think the ability for us to try to shepherd diverse young talent through and get them to a place where they actually can say, I have something published, I'm getting paid. Those are all like really important opportunities. So sorry, that was my phone.
That's fine. I wanted to say hi to Mark Biggis, who's joining us from Los Angeles. Hey, friends. And a reminder to everybody that's watching, you can totally pop up questions in the comments. I will absolutely do my very best to get them answered for you. So don't be shy. Everybody's here because they love the same thing, which is creative things like comic books and those kinds of coolnesses. Right, you dropped a fun thing that you worked in animation, and now I just have to, or video games. I just have to know. Don't tell me more.
Well, I mean, the video game industry, I graduated UNC in 1994. Sorry, 1996, and my ex-fiance and I moved to Dallas, and I was given an opportunity I pursued and then got an opportunity to work at an ad agency. And their big client was Sony PlayStation. So this is when they were bringing PlayStation to America. So I was able to do that, and sit down now. My dog is here. She's like jostling me for treats. Yeah, she is jostling me for treats. Okay, go downstairs. You got food downstairs. Go downstairs. Every interview I do, they all know how she makes herself known. But yeah, I got into the game industry and which is also very hard to get into, and it was very exciting to push that veil and get through. And then that was my career for a decade. I worked on really all facets of video game, from marketing to having some producer access, to being able to handle sales inside of major retailers. And so all of that gave me and I did it on the vendor side, like an ad agency, on the client side, and on the corporate retail side with Blockbuster Corporate. So all of that, I think, gave me a perspective on IP and how consumers interact with properties, both new and old properties, what retail has to do to help those properties get a successful look from the consumer, and then likewise how you market and build hype. And so all of those things went into us building Saturday AM and trying to create a brand that would not have the financial clout of the bigger companies, but could have an opportunity, again, without realizing social media would be a thing, but would give a chance to create a look of what we're doing that seemed much more professional and much more accessible to consumers who are new to the space. So it's been I've been happy to have the career that I've had in the arc of it, because it's given me, I don't think I could have built Saturday AM, in my 20s. In fact, I'm confident I could have done it. So.
And you also get to, other than just kind of like being behind the scenes and music up new creators, you've been working on some of these titles yourself. Talk a little bit about your creative process.
I think being the publisher means that I have a certain vision for our line, and the creators all own their IP, but I still have a vision for what I want our work and our relationship to consumers to look like. And so it's important for me for Saturday AM to be accessible, both in terms of the creators and the way that we market our stuff, but also in the sort of content that we make. So we are not the best home for content, at least yet, for content that is more languid and is more like two people talking in a coffee shop, and it's just their conversation. Like, I see a lot of indie press that does that, and I love it, but we're just not that place. We're trying to hit a trajectory where we can create a broader experience, something that can fit right in alongside the Attack on Titans and the Narutos and Dragon Ball, since so much of the market is there. And so we really pushed it to that direction, and that's been where we are. And then for the titles IP that I created, the simple answer is that when we were getting all these exciting creators who were approaching us, they all kept wanting to do the same thing. And I was adamant that I wanted Saturday to be broader than that, within reason, right? So the 3 books you have behind you, for example, Yellow Stringer, that was an attempt to basically do something that was very similar to a Detective Conan, and it's kind of your classic 1980s or 90s manga, like Gunsmith Cats from Kenichi Sonoda. I just really wanted something that felt really personality driven and had really stylish characters to it. It's got an LGBTQ relationship in it, which I'm really proud of, a lesbian relationship, and it just feels very manga-like, but also is not like superheroes saving the day. With Mask Me Multiplayer with the Ghost, which was actually my first title that I developed. That was the first title Saturday had. That one, I grew up amongst many South Asian people. In my neighborhood I have now, but since I moved back to North Carolina, I have a lot of South Asian people. So to have a main character who is South Asian, who is every bit as viable and exciting and fun as Harry Potter or Naruto, but is South Asian, I thought was so important that we not try to, that diversity meant everybody. It didn't mean just people who look like me or people who look like, you or the standard manga trope. It meant everybody. It meant people from various countries, people from various backgrounds, with different cultural identities. So MLOG was great for that. We did a lot of research into Hindu mythology, into some of the characters that are there. All the books have an amazing artist, but that artist is actually Asian himself, Oscar Funk. So we've been really proud of that. And then, of course, our biggest title to date so far, it's right next to Apple Black, is Clock Striker. And that one was created specifically because we get all these requests in, and it rarely featured Black characters. And the artist would be Black. And when I would ask them, well, how come you don't have Black characters? You draw so beautifully, and you are maybe African or you're Black. They would be like, well, it would seem forced. And my line has always been, I've been to Japan, I was stationed in Japan, I've done a lot of business with the Japanese. Jen, I've never seen in my life a blonde-haired, blue-eyed Japanese person like Naruto Uzumaki. Like, that does not exist.
It's a good example to put it, get people out of that headspace. Yeah,
100%. Like that does not exist on any level. There might be someone who bleached their hair, but they didn't bleach their eyes. Like, there's no way that happened in Japan, and yet the Japanese have that as a main character, and the world knows that character. So my point being is that the world and the Japanese can embrace and accept this wonderful character. I mean, Naruto to me is a fantastic series. If they can embrace that and know that there's no way in the world that character is ethnically Asian or Japanese, then why are we like all walking on eggshells about having Black characters in manga or having Indian characters in manga? So Clock Striker was really meant to offset that. The beautiful thing about Cass in that series is that she could be anybody. She could have been a young white boy. She could have been a young white girl. She could have been Indian. She could have been Arabic. It wouldn't have made a difference. The story is still an exciting, action-packed story. It just so happens that her being a Black female has profound perspectives to it that we rarely see. And so the fact that it's been so incredibly successful and embraced by critics and by the retail community and by a lot of fans has been really rewarding. But we try to have an identity for the company. We're all focused on creating diverse characters for sure.
I will tell you very specifically that I was listening to be aware of a company and have people mention a company, and to have even had an interview with people earlier. But for me to be able to stand in front of you and to see your passion for what you're doing was like a different level of right. I feel like the way I want the world to be includes this very much. And I think that I came back and immediately made a full line order. I was very excited to have it. And it's thank you so much for you guys helped provide little shelf talkers that we filled out, and my staff is like blowing through the books. By the way, I have a read all policy here, and tell my staff that they're almost required to make sure that they, after they read whatever they're going to read, that they make little they definitely make some reviews on there. So I think it's ready to see them pop up on our Facebook page, as they've been like they're like, how many reviews can we put up a day?
Hey, Jen, I so appreciate that. And I mean, I know, obviously you're one of the more respected retailers in the space. And so to hear that is really kind, because, the whole goal of Saturday AM, I mean, listen, we could have obviously ignored the comic book scene. And there were people who frankly thought we should have ignored the comic book scene. And I remember I went to I was really adamant to go to Comics Pro, and I was adamant, fortunately Baltimore Comic Con happened, but we were able to get into the Diamond Retail Summit. But I told a story at the Comics Pro. I mean, I was a nerdy black kid, and like at a time where it was certainly not cool. Period. Like, it just wasn't cool. And so my comic store was such a refuge for me. And I know that nowadays it's so different because kids have the internet and they have so many places they can go and congregate. But there's something to me really magical about stepping into a store and seeing books, especially comics, because it just changes your perspective on the possibilities of things. It really gets you juiced up because the artwork is so primal. You can go from like a Brian Hitch, Justice League or whatever he's doing with Jeff Johns now, and you can then flip over. You've got like something from Marvel, or you've got something from Image, like Saga, or just these beautiful covers. Just always so exciting and intriguing. And I think obviously, being a fan of manga and recognizing some limitations with manga when it comes to retail, where you can't put all that stuff up, in the store. You can't keep 77 volumes of Naruto in stock. And on one hand, have it available for your readers, but on the other hand, have it be something that's in the top, hopefully top 50 of your store sales. It's tough, and so we just really want to try to find. We're still trying to build out the best way we can interact with comic shops, because again, to me, it's such a amazing synergy of building one's identity, of developing their passion for creativity, and at the same time, just being able to be amongst people who are not judging them because they like to wear a wig, or they like to, wear their superhero costumes, to school. So it's we're trying to figure out ways to be more active with you guys, but I really appreciate the fact that you're carrying the books, and the fact that your staff are excited about the books, because obviously that means so much to us. So thank you for those kind words.
There's something about comic book shops specifically where if you work in one or own one, chances are you were one of those kids that felt that pressure of not being cool, and you were like, I want to make a place where it doesn't matter. Like, if you like anything remotely close to what is in here, then you're amongst your people. So you're just giving us another tool to be like, and these books definitely have somebody that you can identify with in them.
No, 100%. I could not agree with you more. 100%. And I love, like I said, I just love the passion that comes from the comic industry. There are two groups, at least since we started going into retail, that they're just such easy conversations. There are obviously complications to all these businesses, but with a comic book store owner, you never have to debate why this exists. You never have to do that. And with librarians, you never have to debate why it exists. Those two groups who really get it. Obviously, therefore, the groups who aren't in those two sectors, it means it's really tough to get them to care about your property. But that's the thing I love about comic stores and librarians, is that you don't have to. Like I said again, like, it's very. You guys always make things feel very at home, and also too, with you being a female owner, I'm really excited about that, because Webtoon, who is a wonderful company, but like, that's one of the things they really dominated on. Is they dominated a lot of female readers, and part of the reason for that is because women, traditionally, I won't say currently, but traditionally, not felt welcome in comic book stores. So they just discovered Webtoon, were able to kind of go in there and enjoy that feeling of having to be something they're not, or having to like be challenged about stuff. They can just go in and appreciate the material and read it at their own pace. And so I think that whatever again we can do to try to get the comic stores to be something where young people can really appreciate going again, and try to improve the relationship with young female readers and future creators would be something I would love to do.
Well, It's awesome. Oh, everybody, you need to go and find this product at your local comic shop or a bookstore. I'm sure that you can find them. Or if you have a local comic shop that's never heard of them, like that just wasn't on their radar, tell them that they should carry the line. And manga is one of the top segments, and I think it is the top segment of books across the market. If you look at BookScan, it's dominating everything, and then it comes like YA or kids books. So yeah, it's definitely a strong thing that they encourage them to carry, especially for companies like this that are amazing. Thank you so much. I'm so thankful that you were willing to pop on. We were a bad planner this week.
No, it's all good. I mean, I was when I got the note, I was more than happy from Kyle. I was more than happy to try to hop on. Obviously, we didn't have time to let our fans know, so I'll have to, when this gets finished, I'll have to, please, Kyle, if you're watching, send me the link so I can let all our fans know, because they really enjoy these conversations.
I got you.
Okay, thank you. So I'll make sure they check the video out. But with that being said, though, Jen, I so appreciate just your support and taking time out. I really appreciate that.
Perfect. Have you on again when we have another title release for sure?
Yeah. Oh, actually, I'll just say real quick, but yeah, I mean, so our next title is obviously, and I know I've got the spring filter on, so it might not show up, but Gun Hill came out recently. Gun Hill's out. Yep. So Gun Hill's out. It's great. It's Norse mythology by a young, wonderful talent named Fred Torniger from Denmark. The reviews have been fantastic on it. It's doing quite well, so I've been really happy about that. And then next month, in a few weeks, right alongside Free Comic Day, Apple Black Volume 3, which I know I can only show here a little bit.
People are going to lose their mind. They've been waiting for this book.
They've been waiting for this book, exactly. And so we're really excited for this. And then obviously, we're hard at work next year for we got more books coming out this year, by the way, but we're hard at work on Saturday Wars, which is our gigantic crossover. So it'll be a graphic novel that has all of our characters together. So I'm excited about that. Yeah, our Avengers Endgame or something. So.
All right, everybody. Well, definitely follow Saturday AM. And we'll see you guys next time for Talkin Shop. Thank you so much for joining us. Bye, y'all.
Bye.
Join the party. Head over to our link tree to find